Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are doing well. Today, I'm going to explain a movie named The Shed. Once upon a time in a spooky jungle, there was a man running scared, holding a gun. A fearsome vampire appeared and bit him. The vampire had a bald head and terrifying large teeth. Vampires are creatures that drink people's blood. Just before the vampire could finish drinking the man's blood, the sun rose and the vampire burned into ashes. Sadly, the man turned into a vampire too because of the bite. He found out that sunlight also harmed him. To save his life, he wrapped himself in a shawl and flew away. He started seeking refuge in a shed. In a different part of the story, we meet a boy named Stan. His mom comes to wake him for breakfast, but he has a shocking dream. However, in reality, his parents were no longer alive, and he now lived with his grandmother in their home. He was strict and not very friendly towards Stan, which made Stan not like him very much. Every day, Stan would head to school, passing by the shed where the vampire was holding. On his way to school, mischievous kids would often distract him, and one day accidentally collided with a police truck. This angered the officer and the sheriff inside. The officer warned Stan but lets him go with a final warning. At school, Stan's friend was being bothered by three mischievous boys, but Stan came to the rescue and a fight broke out. Their teacher intervened to stop the fight. Stan's former friend Roxy was now hanging out with the mischievous group even though they treated her poorly. Stan and his friends went out to have some fun, but his friend made a hurtful joke about Roxy, which angered Stan. This was because he had feelings for her. He walked away thinking about Roxy. Back home, his grandfather asked him to cut the grass and take out the dog. The dog acted strangely, barking at the shed continuously. Curious, Stan went to check the shed and found human teeth belonging to the vampire. Unbeknownst to Stan, he had also turned into a vampire. As Stan inspected the shed, the vampire man attacked him from behind. The story takes an unexpected turn, adding suspense to the plot. As the sun's rays stream through the window, the vampire begins to burn, giving Stan a chance to escape and save his life. Stan tries to threaten the vampire to come out quietly, but when the vampire refuses, Stan leaves. He brings his dog to confront him. To Stan's surprise, the dog returns from the shed, but its head is severed, leaving him terrified. He realizes that this is no joke, this is a serious problem. Stan decides to get weapons from the house, but his grandfather stops him and asks him about the situation. Stan explains everything, but his grandfather finds it hard to believe. Upon checking and seeing the dogs beheaded, the grandfather becomes convinced and angry. Ignoring Stan's pleas, he heads to the shed, but he is attacked by the vampire and gets injured. Stan tries his best to save his grandfather, but the vampire's strength is overwhelming. Ultimately, the vampire drags the grandfather inside the shed, locks it with chains and seals it, leaving them trapped. The situation takes a dark and dangerous turn for both Stan and his grandfather. In a state of confusion and fear, Stan finds himself locked up in jail and unable to seek help from the police. One night, he has a terrifying dream in which someone opens his locked door and calls him from the shed. Hypnotized, he walks towards the shed only to be attacked by a vampire inside. Fortunately, he wakes up from this dreadful nightmare. The next day at school, Stan tries to forget the ordeal and reconnects with Roxy, reminiscing about his past. However, Marble, the leader of the mischievous group, interrupts and taunts Roxy for sitting with a coward like Stan. Later, Stan's friend causes further problems, leaving Stan unable to share the secret about the shed. Stan's friend then encounters Marble and his mischievous gang, resulting in a severe beating. Stan, armed with a bat, faces the vampire in the shed with great courage. Though frightened, as the vampire attempts to catch him, the sun's rays come to the rescue, causing the vampire to burn. The story is filled with suspense and courage as Stan faces challenging situations while trying to protect himself and those around him. After surviving the encounter with the vampire, Stan was still haunted by the traumatic experience. His beaten friend seeking revenge asked Stan to reveal the truth about the shed and the monster he mentioned. Stan shared everything, but his friend was skeptical until he saw the terrifying face of the monster. Convinced and scared, they sealed the shed with sticks. Stan sought advice on what to do, and his friend suggested trapping the mischievous boys in the shed for revenge, intending to harm them severely. Stan hesitated, uncomfortable with the idea of violence. He feared his friend's thirst for revenge and worried that they might reveal the vampire's secret to someone else. At night, Stan watched a film to learn how to kill a vampire. He discovered three methods: using sunlight, attacking the heart, or being beheaded. The film added to this understanding of the vampire's weakness and fueled his determination to find the solution of the dangerous situation. The story unfolds with suspense as Stan grapples with the idea of revenge and seeks ways to protect himself and others from the vampire's threat. While watching the film, Stan falls asleep and has a nightmare where Roxy, the girl from the poster, turns into a vampire and attacks him. He wakes up terrified only to experience another dream where the vampire hidden in the shed attacks him again. Finally, he truly wakes up, realizing he's been disturbed by fear and stress. Fearing for his safety, Stan starts sleeping with a knife nearby. However, he accidentally cuts himself with the knife. Determined to end the vampire's threat, he begins digging a hole in the shed's roof to expose the vampire to sunlight. As he works on the shed, Sheriff, a woman from the neighborhood, comes looking for Stan's grandfather. Stan lies to send her away, making her suspicious as she notices her grandfather's car outside. Sheriff inquires about the nearby family that had disappeared, and Stan pretends to know nothing about it, raising more doubts. Sheriff reveals that the family's head has gone to the jungle to investigate the animal killings and hasn't returned yet. Stan and Sheriff both realize that the man seen running in the fear in the beginning of the story was the head of the family, now a vampire hiding in the shed. Running late for school, Stan is unable to give satisfactory answers to Sheriff's questions. She offers to drop him at school, and Stan agrees, keeping a secret about the vampire shed. The story continues to unfold with suspense and intrigue as Stan tries to navigate the dangerous situation and protect himself from the neighborhood from the vampire's threat. Before leaving, Sheriff notices Stan's grandfather's stick lying on the ground. At school, Stan meets Roxy and she expresses concern about him. However, Marble arrives and starts teasing Roxy again, pushing Stan over the edge. In a fit of anger, Stan beats Marble, showing his strength and courage. The teacher intervenes to stop the fight, scolding Stan and threatening to inform his grandfather about his behavior. Panicked, Stan rushes home, knowing that if Sheriff reaches the shed, things will turn worse. Marble follows him. Unable to enter the house, Stan watches as Sheriff approaches the shed. Realizing someone is hiding inside, Sheriff opens it, but Stan attempts to reason with her. Ignoring his pleas, she opens the door, and the vampire emerges, biting her neck and empowering her. The vampire drags Sheriff inside, leaving her hand falling outside the house. Stan is traumatized by the incident and fears that Marble will continue causing trouble for him. The story takes a dark turn, with suspense building up with the vampire's presence becoming a threat to everyone involved. Marble, seeking revenge for the public humiliation, attacks Stan despite his warnings about a bigger problem. Stan's friend steps in to protect him, holding onto Sheriff guns to scare away Marble. However, Marble's madness overpowers his fear, and he insists going on inside the shed, where the vampire awaits. Inside the shed, the vampire attacks Marble, leading to a tragic outcome. Stan is upset with his friend for contributing to Marble's death, even though Marble was troublesome, he didn't deserve to die. In the middle of the chaos, Stan gets hit with the gun and loses consciousness. When he wakes up, he finds Roxy nearby, and she notices the cut hand, raising questions. Before he can answer, Stan heads into the shed to check, where he finds Marble's terrifying vampire corpse. As Roxy awaits, Stan's friend attacks him once again, but Stan seizes an opportunity and uses a stake to expose his friend to sunlight, causing burns to his arm. Roxy witnesses this shocking event, leaving the story with suspense and uncertainty about the vampire's return and the consequences of Stan's actions. As the confrontation with the vampire unfolds, Stan manages to injure his friend with sunlight, but he is too late to save him. Overwhelmed by regret, Stan's friend stumbles into his burns. With this tragedy behind them, Stan and Roxy still have to face the first vampire who poses a real threat. They make preparations to confront him, sealing the house, setting up sharp woods, and hiding their carts to avoid suspicion. When night falls, they're ready to face the vampire. However, their plan is interrupted when two of Marble's friends arrive at the door and refuse to leave. The vampire shows up, kills one of Marble's friends, and then moves to the upper floor of the house. Stan, Roxy, and the other friend had a plan to find and kill the vampire. But things takes a dangerous turn when the other friend who was bitten by the vampire earlier turns into a vampire himself. Now, faced with a greater challenge, they must confront not only the first vampire but also the farmer friend who has also become a vampire. The situation becomes more dire and tense when they try to navigate the danger and find a way to protect themselves from the vampire's threat. This story continues with suspense and unexpected twists as the characters strive to survive with the night. As the intense battle unfolds, the vampire manages to turn Marble's one friend into a vampire too. Meanwhile, Roxy looks at a picture in the room, but she's suddenly attacked by Marble's vampire friend. Stan rushes to her aid and locks himself and the two vampires' friends in a room, preparing to kill them. As the two vampire friends force their way in, Stan quickly shoots a bullet through one, hitting the one of the chest and effectively killing both. The first vampire's head is separated from his body and the other's heart is destroyed. Before the remaining vampire can harm Roxy, Stan confronts with a gun, but the vampire swiftly disarms him. Stan then tries to strike the vampire with an axe, but it has little effect on the powerful creature. The vampire attacks Stan relentlessly until Roxy intervenes, pointing a gun at him. However, the vampire remains undeterred and moves towards Roxy. Despite firing a gun at the vampire, it has no effect. In an attempt to save Roxy, Stan throws a knife, but it accidentally hits her instead. The vampire then grabs Stan again to finish him off. In a courageous act, Roxy uses an axe to sever the vampire's head from his body, finally putting an end to the evil creature. Afterward, they burn the shed with all the vampire's corpses inside. Both Stan and Roxy are relieved and happy that the nightmare is finally over. The movie's story finally comes to an end, finally with an intense action and bravery in the face of terrifying threat. From the movie, there are two valuable lessons that can be learned. Number 1, the consequences of revenge. The movie illustrates the dangerous consequences of seeking revenge without considering the potential harm it may cause to oneself. It is essential to find healthier ways to address conflicts and negative emotions. Number 2, the power of teamwork and friendship. Throughout the movie, Stan and Roxy face numerous challenges, but they manage to overcome them by helping together as a team. The film highlights the importance of relying on friends and loved ones during difficult times and how teamwork can lead to successful outcomes in a face of adversity. So guys, that's all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, do consider subscribing. Bye guys!